Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Lonely Artist podcast. I am your host, Ariane, and today we have a lovely and chill interview with a fellow comic creator and amazing artist, Brittany. She has been absorbed in creating art for most of her life, especially focusing on topics of fantasy and nature. Currently 28, she has worked in graphic design for the past 7 years and has been pursuing her dream of creating the Falling Lands for a little over 2 years now. And she is having a blast doing it. Thank you so much for letting me interview you. I've been really curious to talk to you about your comic and just get a little bit more of an insight behind the scenes of the Falling Lands. And I just really like your work so much. It's pretty unique. I feel like your style is different. The way you're telling your story is different. It's not following the stereotypical popular types of comics that you usually see on Webtoon. So that's why I was really drawn to it. And also we've worked together, so it's super cool as well. So
Yeah, well, thank
thank
you
you
so
so
much for
much.
inviting me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. And yeah, I'm really intrigued to know more about you, and I'm sure the people listening will be too. So why don't we go ahead and get started with how your art journey began?
Okay, yeah. So I guess in some ways, I mean, it's pretty typical. I started creating art from a really young age, like maybe like 4 or so, and it was just like, a way of entertainment. And as I got older, you're encouraged to start thinking about your career and stuff like that. And so I felt like this is really what I want to do as a career. So I started taking it more seriously and trying to grow as an artist and eventually get to that point where I could make a living off of it.
Mhm. And was your family always supportive of that path?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, my family never really tried to pressure me into going towards any other direction, but at the same time, there was never really anything else I had an interest in or even like focused on to the same degree as art.
Mhm.
So, um, yeah, that's just really what I had my sights set on for the longest time.
That's so cool that you always knew. Like, some people have several things, but you were like pretty focused on what you wanted to do.
Is it the same for you, or how is
Um,
like yours kind of compared to that?
Well, I'm like the cliche story as well. Like I started from a very young age and it was like the only thing I wanted to do. But I feel like my family is pretty I guess achievement oriented in a very traditional way. So I did think about, pursuing other things like engineering at some point or like um design at some other point, but like I don't know, like fashion design or something like that. And at the end I thought I was going to study marketing, but just life happened and I never got to even go to college. Like I never even got that chance. So I was like, well, I guess art it is because it's the only thing I like really.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the really nice things about art as a career is like college isn't a necessity, even like more so now than ever. I feel like you can, find so many resources and connections online. So it's like, do you need to do like the whole traditional education? Like maybe not.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I feel like with art, your work speaks for itself. Like you really have the thing there to show people that you know what you're doing or that you do it in a specific way, right? You don't need to like prove that you studied this thing for years and years.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've also seen it on your website that you do some graphic design work. So I was wondering if that's what you studied. Like, what exactly did you study in college?
Yeah, so my degree is both in graphic design and illustration. But I would say definitely more of an emphasis in graphic design. That's kind of what the program focused on. And also like that is definitely what the bulk of like my customer work is. So I guess it's kind of worked out in that sense.
Yeah. And like when exactly or how did you start taking an interest in making comics?
Yeah, so that was like kind of an interesting journey because my senior year of college, I had an instructor. His name was Cole Klosser, and he made comics, and so he kind of brought that aspect into the illustration class I had with him. And it kind of got me thinking about like storytelling beyond just like, a still illustration. So something, well, comics, I guess. Okay. But I never really had the confidence to think that I could tell a story, let alone like through a series of drawings. And so just like having that one class in that step to like kind of test the waters and make me like consider how to do it was what I would really call the starting point. And then I kind of let that go because I graduated and I found a job in graphic design. And then like I feel like I almost regressed in a sense with uh the drawing part of my art and the illustration because I was so focused on design. And
Yeah.
so it was like I had to build back up to that point again where I was like, I want to do the art that makes me happy and tell the stories that I want to tell. And so fast forward all the way to 2019 when I was like, my work had just gone out of business, by the way. That's part of what kind of
Oh.
prompted this. But I'm like, now is the moment. Like, this is your chance. Like, start putting the time into this if you really want to do it. And so that's when I actually started making the Falling Lands and actually putting more time and effort and research into figuring out like how making comics work.
Yeah, well, that's super interesting, and it's kind of cool, like that you kind of fell in love back with, drawing, coming from working so much in graphic design. And it's funny because I have a somewhat of a similar path. Like when I turned 18, I started working straight away, and like I already had some skills with like graphic design just because I was like self-taught. And I worked as a graphic designer for like several years up until 2019 as well, when I was like, okay, I really want to be an artist. Screw
Isn't
this.
it funny how the end of 2019, 2020 is such a turning point?
Oh my God. And how do you think like your graphic design background has helped you or has influenced the way you work with your comics?
It definitely helps in so many aspects. It's kind of hard to like think about all of them because they're really intertwined when it comes to design principles, as far as like composition or like how you structure the page and a hierarchy and really helping the readers along the journey and telling them like what to look at, where to read, what to focus on. So I think graphic design has really helped me with all of that. But also, like maybe the biggest thing that I never expected to transition into making comics that helped me was just project management. Like working in graphic design, especially if you have larger projects that span a long period of time. Like I just find like project management is something I have to get it done.
Yeah.
And so like applying that to my comic has really kept me on track over the past like what 2-ish years.
Yeah. It seems like it just gives you a lot more order, right? And just like efficiency in the process.
Yeah, exactly.
And like while you were considering, going into making comics, like how exactly did you come up with the idea for the Falling Lands?
So it was kind of, I guess, spontaneous, but also gradual. Because one Inktober, I think it was the 2019 Inktober series. Um, I had drawn this illustration of this cat uh, with a fishing pole in the clouds. He was walking on the clouds, and that ended up like being, I guess, the first concept of Lux.
Mhm.
But I just kind of was stuck on that illustration after I made it. I was like, what is going on here? I don't even know, but like I have to find the answer. So I kept like asking myself questions. I'm like, well, maybe this is happening in this world. And I'm like, no, that doesn't make sense. Maybe this. And so I just kept going back and forth, like trying to almost solve a math problem, it felt like, until I was like, okay, so I have to make this story now. I have to figure out what's going on. It was just like I couldn't be like mentally at peace until I knew the answer.
Yeah. Kind of like problem solving, and at the same time just like I don't know, like feeding that creative fuel, it seems like.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And honestly, like I must say, your animal characters are my favorite ones. Like they're just
Oh,
the
really?
best. Junior is my favorite one by far,
Oh
for
my gosh,
sure.
every time I draw Junior, like I can't help but smile.
It's just
And
so
like
nice, so pretty, so funny, and like cute and innocent. I love it.
I don't know, have you ever read the book The Wind in the Willows?
No, I don't think I have.
Okay, it is one of my favorites, and it's crazy because it's just a children's book, but it is hilarious. And there are these talking animals in there, and they're a little bit of the inspiration for like the animal characters in the Falling Lands,
Yeah.
because like just I don't know, the aspect of like taking these animals and giving them their own voices, and like kind of their own objectives and stuff. I thought it was really interesting, but also just the way that the characters are done in that book. Like Mr. Toad is a gem of a character.
Well, that's what I feel like your animal characters are the ones with like I mean they all have great personalities, but the animal characters are like just oozing with personality and just like it's just so fun to read whenever they appear. It's just fantastic for me. It's my favorite. Like those are my favorite episodes for sure.
That's really good to hear because like I guess I don't have a lot of perspective onto into like which characters readers relate to and in which ways.
Hmm. No, I can see that because like it's kind of hard for people to like engage with commenting on episodes sometimes, especially when you don't have like a super large following. So it's super hard to know like what are people thinking of what I'm posting because I have no idea.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just kind of like letting it all out there into the internet and just, I guess, hoping
Yeah,
for the best.
yeah, exactly. You're like, I mean, the world's big enough. Odds are at least one other person will like get it.
And what would you say is your favorite part of the comic making process?
So that's really hard because basically all of the process I enjoy, except for like flatting. I I really don't like flatting, but everything else just has these different aspects that kind of bring me joy or accomplishment. So I think the thing that I really like the most is just getting these kind of ephemeral ideas and making them something concrete, which kind of goes back to like why I started it in the first place. Like I wanted answers and I'm trying to figure all this stuff out. And I'm like, I don't know, there's this whole like process I go through where like a struggle and it's I want to know the answer like and I can't Google it. I'm like, why can't I? But you have to be Google. And so in the end, you come up with the answer. And so the whole journey, it's just like such a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, and I mean I guess that's what I mean when I say that I feel that your story and comic is so unique because like some of the creatures there are completely like coming from your imagination and the plant and like the background. It's all something that you are not going to be able to be like, can I find a reference picture of this? Like, no. And I
Yeah, I
really
mean,
appreciate that like level of creativity and uniqueness to it.
oh, thank you. I think I mean a lot of it. It's funny you say that, like that it couldn't come from references because, like, to an extent, that is like the base of everything, and it just like builds from there. It's almost like a collage of so many different things, and it's weird to think about because when you look at the final of any piece of art, it's like you can never know what went into it or
Mhm.
you know the inspiration, but like I have references for all these locations and characters and stuff, and I just like I can't I can't bring myself to just like make it based off one thing. I have to figure out these parts and pieces and put it together. I don't know.
Sounds like you really like problem solving from what I'm listening to.
I do. I used to really like Sudokus and stuff like that too, which I guess is a smaller version, but like yeah, puzzles and stuff. I don't know. Yeah.
I was wondering also, like, is there a specific reason why you decided to limit the color palette of your work? Was that like a decision you made because it's a bit easier to handle just a few colors, or like because it gives it its own unique visual aesthetic? Like what was the reason behind the limited color palette?
Yeah, there are a couple things that add to that. And part of it did, especially in the beginning, start out with keeping things simple. Um, it just I felt like it was an easy way to carry that harmony throughout and not have to like figure out the colors every single time. But also like coming from a graphic design standard or background, brand standards and stuff, and branded colors like just really help give an entity a voice. And so I was like, if I can apply this here, it just helps the world feel a little more cohesive. But also as I was like creating pages and exploring new environments and stuff, I started to realize like you could do with more colors, you can expand on that and gradually build. And so that is kind of what's happened, especially down the line to like books 2, and I've even started on book 3. It's like I started out with this really limited palette, and like it still definitely stays limited as it continues, but I just gradually keep building on to keep kind of exploring these different, I guess, facets of the world and like the environment and emotions.
Yeah, that's really cool that you are doing all of that and like thinking about it consciously, and it's not just like something that you're doing unintentionally. Is that a word? Unintentional? Yeah, right?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. I feel like your comic really relies heavily on limited colors too. What was your like intentions behind that? Like Oddworld specifically, I just especially in the beginning, that color palette is just so punchy and like
No, yeah. Well, I don't know. Actually, the Oddworlds that you are reading now is a redo of the first version that I ever made. And when I made that
oh
first version, the colors were like a complete mess. I think like color theory has been one of the hardest things for me to grasp when it comes to making art. And so when I redid it, I was like, I'm just going to give each separate universe within the story its own unique color palette, because that'll help me not have to figure out anything, and that'll like help people know where exactly in the world we are at. But then like I guess I got a little bit bored of just having a few colors, and I was like, oh, what if I just try and actually be a good artist and like understand color theory, and like give myself a little bit of an opportunity to learn as I go and just use more colors. And so that's why I decided to add more colors later on. I just feel like I think I have to be a little bit I guess smarter about it, or just like learn to use colors to my advantage a little bit more, just because I'm terrible with them.
well, it's so hard when there's so many.
It is
Like
so
where do
hard.
I start?
Yeah, and then combining them and like trying to get a specific mood with the colors is just, it's really hard when you're using several and not just a specific color palette. But I feel like, for example, with your colors, even though you have expanded on the colors and but you still have this limited color palette, like depending on the mood of each episode, like you use them differently. You don't apply the colors the same way all the time, like to the characters, which is really cool because it kind of like informs you of like sort of like what is going on or what the emotions you're supposed to be feeling are, or the mood, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I really do like using colors to set a mood because I feel like it's just one more way to add another layer to everything. I
Yeah.
don't know, because I mean, obviously you have words and expressions, but it's like, why not take advantage of all of your tools?
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. And actually, I wanted to ask you because I'm curious, since I can't specifically pinpoint like your references and things like that because it's all like meshed. I
Yeah.
wanted to know like who your biggest inspirations are.
So my inspirations, they're kind of all over the place. But I do take a lot of inspiration from actually like creators of fairy tales and stuff like that. So, like older illustrators of fairy tales like Kai Nielsen and Edmund Duloc, I really love their stuff. And also kind of along the same vein, like Alphonse Muha, like his stuff. I don't know his lines. His his colors too. I really love that. Um, and then there are plenty of like modern inspirations too, though. Like Phobes, I love Phobes' work. And Jake Wyatt, he's another one who does like these really punchy colors. His webcomic Necropolis, which I don't think he's updated in a while, but there's these
Oh,
really, really intense pinks and purples. And yeah, the way he uses color is just mind blowing.
I need to
Um,
look that up because I think I've heard of that comic, but I haven't read it.
oh yeah, I mean, I totally love that one. I wish it would update again. Um, Stand Still, Stay Silent is another one I'm a pretty big fan of. Like the I don't know, just that world building and everything about it and the detail it goes into. So that one's really inspirational. And also like Above the Clouds. I can't remember the name of the artist, but that one, it's just like this really beautiful, light, delicate kind of comic. But I would count like all of those as kind of like more modern inspirations to my work.
Mhm.
Um, and then like I also have inspirations I draw from for writing too. And so like anything from Tolkien to George R. R. Martin, Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman. I also love like the kind of older Final Fantasy games. Those
Oh,
have
those
kind
are
of made me
super
think
cool.
about like world building and stuff.
Yeah.
And then going back further, just like fairy tales and myths from around the world. I also kind of try to think about how they approach stories and I guess like characters and world building. And so all of that kind of builds upon itself to, I guess, get me to the point I'm at.
It really seems like it's a little bit of everything.
I know it was a long list, or I made it sound like a long list, one of the two.
No, but it's super cool that you can like pinpoint a lot of the inspirations because sometimes you'll see things that you like, but you don't really like remember who they're from or like just have it a little bit more organized in your head. So it's cool that
Oh yeah.
you know all
I mean,
those.
I'm sure there's a ton of inspiration that I could never name that's just like saved in, Pinterest and Instagram that I'm like, oh, I need to go back and look at this because I vaguely remember this one
Yeah.
illustration. But sadly, I can't remember the name of every artist.
Yeah, the struggle is real. I'm so bad with names. Like I can't remember anything at all if it has a name. Like nothing, I swear.
Well, I mean, it's kind of hard because we're so used to, having it stored in our phone or whatever. It's like I have easy access. I don't need to know it off
Exactly.
the top of my head.
I have some OCs that like I have to go back to my list of OCs and check what their name is because I won't remember. Like that's how bad I am.
I'm kind of like that with spelling the OC names. I'm like, no, this isn't common. So there's like a 80% chance I'm gonna spell my own character's name wrong if I don't go look this up.
Same here. No worries. You're not alone in this. And also because this is a place of support, I like to know if there are any like smaller artists or art accounts or even comics that you follow and love that you feel like need more attention or deserve more attention.
Well, I mean, first of all, yours.
Oh my
I
God.
love your comics, and you definitely deserve all the support you can get because like you're out here trying to support a ton of other artists and help build that art community and like
Thank you so much.
also like spread information to other artists who want to take the time to listen to us. Um,
I love complimenting other people, but whenever it's directed at me, I'm just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to respond to it. Sorry, go ahead. Who else?
no, that's fine. But also, let's see, Devilish Comics. I'm a huge fan of her work in The Lost Crown of Himaru.
Oh yes, it's so good.
Plus, plus she does so much work on the Quacktoons Discord and building that community.
Mhm.
And so props there because just like like making a comic alone is hard enough, but like helping build a community, that's something else entirely that deserves a ton of credit.
It's insane. Like respects to her for doing all that work.
Yeah. Another longtime like artist friend of mine, Delphi Arts, she has I think two comics going on right now on Webtoon. So I highly recommend checking her out. Uh, the art of Joanne Poon. Joanne is a really close friend of mine who does a ton of my flatting for me.
Oh, nice.
And so I owe Joanne so much. But her work is amazing. Like her comic is amazing, her illustration skills. Yeah, so definitely support Joanne. Julia art as well. I'm really close with Julia and like I love her work. She does like more fantasy style stuff too, and so I connect with that really easily.
Yeah.
And then Ash Tree House, I recommend checking out Ash Tree House as well. Off the top of my head, that's what I have.
Okay.
But honestly, I would suggest like anyone who's interested, go check out the Clocktoons Discord. And we can link. I can share a link with that too, or I'm sure you have it because you're
Yeah.
on there.
Yeah, no
But
worries.
like there are so many friends there who like do so much like to support fellow artists, but also to help, you know, share resources and educate us, insights, support. So I would say just check out the Quacktoons Discord and like so many great artists there, but
Yeah.
also like people you can become friends with.
That's super cool. And I've found so many comics that I would have never found otherwise, or people, just friends. It's really cool that that community exists.
Yeah, like I'm definitely part of a lot of discords, but that's the one that really sticks out to me. And I think it's because it's like this smaller, tighter knit community. And so
Hmm.
that's why I'm putting so much emphasis on, I guess, that one, because
Yeah.
that's where I am all the time, because that's where I feel comfortable.
And what advice can you give to people who follow you that want to become artists themselves?
Yeah, that's hard because the journey is so different for everybody. Um, but like I guess it kind of like there's a little bit of semantics there too, because it's like being an artist is technically as simple as just doing the art, you know, starting that process.
Mhm.
But then there's the aspect of like how you want to grow as an artist. And I think there's a lot of value in just sitting down and asking yourself, you know, what do you want to do? What direction do you want to point yourself in? And kind of think critically about how you want to grow and what skills you want to learn. So start researching and just doing trial and error to get there. And you know, just keep going because no matter what journey you're on, there will always be hard points or difficult challenges. But it's like just keep going and figure out what works for you. I just wanted to also like note that it's so easy to be discouraged because like we can see all these journeys other artists have gone on, but we don't know the details or how gradual everything was. And so kind of expect that for yourself too. Like it'll just be different and you know, maybe you'll be really lucky and you'll you know, grow really fast, but no matter what the pace is, just kind of like uh just keep going.
No, but I feel like it's so important that you mentioned that because we kind of forget that nobody's journey is the same ever, and everybody is going to have different struggles and different opportunities or privileges or lack thereof. So I find it very valuable that you mentioned that because it's easy to, you know, give advice, but everybody is always going to be completely different from everybody else.
Yeah, I
So
mean that's something I feel like I've struggled with plenty as an artist. Like it's so easy to hear all of this advice and see all of these steps people have taken, or you know, watch YouTube videos where people say do this to, you know, make money or get customers or get views. But at the end of the day, like you can narrow some of it down to like a generalized concept to get there, but at the end of the day, like it will be individualized.
Mhm.
And so it's like it's really something I have to remind myself of all the time. Like you're moving in the right direction. It's just not, it doesn't look like what you've seen because there's no way it could.
Yeah, of course. Everybody knows about the success stories, but nobody knows about, everybody else who's just getting there.
Exactly.
So what kind of plans do you have for the future, if any, like regarding your work or your social media presence? Like what's next for you in the future?
Yeah, that's something I've been trying to figure out as well. Because I definitely would like my social presence to grow. The big question is like how? I don't know. That's something I need to like sit down and figure out. Which it has been growing gradually. It's something I guess that just happens naturally, like the more you post and stuff. I it but I could definitely sit down and try to make more of a plan that would hopefully help that. But right now, my focus is I'm preparing for my first convention. And so I'm hoping that will also kind of bring more attention to my comic and my social as well, but also hopefully, build more connections, meet more friends.
Yeah.
Um,
That's really exciting. Congratulations and good luck with that. Because like it's
oh,
not
thank
easy to
you.
go to conventions and meet people. I feel like it's a little bit
Yeah,
nerve-wracking.
yeah, it should be interesting because I mean, this is the first one I've actually set up at, so it'll be, I guess, kind of an experiment.
Well, I'm sure it'll go super, super well.
I hope.
And finally, my favorite question of them all, if you could have any magical art power to help you with your artistic process, what would you like that to be?
That's okay. Yeah. I enjoy so much of the process itself, so I don't know that I would want to give any. I know it sounds crazy, but I don't know if I would want to give any of that up to just be like magically done or whatever. Maybe I'm thinking about the question wrong. Um, which
That's
I guess
okay.
I
I mean,
do.
like if you enjoy the struggle.
I do pay people to help me flat, which I wouldn't call that magical. But I don't know. I sometimes do wish I had like unlimited storage and really fast internet. So again, not truly magical, but not always something I have access to.
Yeah.
So
May seem
I wouldn't mind
magical
it.
sometimes. No, I get that. Like, especially with the internet I have here, I'm like, why do I do this? This is horrible.
I know. And it seems like I shouldn't complain about it. At least I have like internet access. But at the same time, I wouldn't mind uploading files faster.
Well, maybe it's about thinking about it in a more like fantasy style thing. Like, I don't know, have several arms to draw more or something like that, crazy like that.
Oh man. Even though I write fantasy, I don't know that I can like I feel so boring and literal
Oh
when I'm
no.
asked things like that. Like all the time if I'm asked like to pick a favorite or to like what if questions and stuff like that, I spin in circles trying to come up with an answer because I'm like I don't live in the world that way. I don't think that way.
You're just like, this is not functional for my life right now. It's not gonna happen. I don't care.
I'm sorry if I botched that question or
Oh
the
my God,
answer to that.
no, that's totally fine. I mean, that's part of why I do this podcast. Everybody's so different, even though we share a lot of things as artists. Everybody's journey is different. Everybody's personality is different. The way they approach art is different. And so I appreciate any kind of answer you'll give me, even if it's I'm too literal and this question does not work for me. But yeah, I mean, those are all the questions. And I feel like it's been very interesting to get to know you more and like actually understand like the person behind the work because we rarely get to see that, especially with art, and that's what's fun about it for me.
This was amazing. This was a lot of fun, and I really appreciate like you taking the time to ask these really in-depth questions and kind of figure out more about me. It helps me figure out more about me, honestly.
Well, that's lovely. I'm happy to hear that. Well, I mean, that's it for today. I don't know if there's anything else you would like to mention for anybody who's listening.
Like, I hope everyone who's out there creating art, has a great time doing it and is motivated to keep going. And anyone out there who's just enjoying art, I want to thank everyone who does, because it means a ton to every artist out there who, has eyes on their creations.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for everything. And honestly, thank you so much for your time. I know like we all have busy lives, and it just means a lot to me that you'll take even 40 minutes, 1 hour of your day to do this. And I appreciate it so, so much.
Oh yeah, of course. Again, like I appreciate like you giving me this opportunity to just talk to you about this. Like it was amazing.
Well, guys, that was it for today's interview. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you had fun and that you learned a lot in the way. And I'll be seeing you for the next one.